Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is for you guys that you're currently watching this video. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Leo Tavares. I do go by Leo. I am a senior peer financial coach for SAM. And today we'll be discussing the topic of retirement. And I know this is one of those topics that's like, 30, 40 years pushing down the line, but the main priority of this topic is to basically highlight the essence that time is for you guys, and then showing how it can also be a double-edged sword, because as much as time is your best friend, it can just as easily be your enemy. So we'll just break it down for those of you who actually begin thinking about it, or for those who just have no idea what it is. We'll lay down the groundwork and hopefully give you guys some new food for thought. Next slide, what's going on? There we go. So we are, like I said, Smart About Money. We are a peer financial literacy group on campus, main office in Goodell, as you can tell by the back. It's like the White House looking building nearby the library. But we offer workshops, presentations, such as this one, of course. And we're known for the one-on-ones that we do with students. You can schedule with us via Navigate, whatever it might be. Any topics ranging from if you want to learn how to create a budget versus international implications for our students, or learning about credit, loans, banking, whatever it might be. We're here as a resource. So as I highlighted, basically learning outcomes for today, discuss the implications of retirement, break down the actual types, like this more like the bread and butter of it, like the main two that we highlight. And then finally, I will show you guys, we'll wrap up with some compound interest, a quick example that I put together. And then we can ultimately highlight why you guys should start saving early, if anything. All right, so what is retirement exactly? Pretty sure everyone, and obviously who's watching this video, has a general sense. You basically hopefully get out of school, get a job, earn enough money, and then hopefully so when you retire, you have enough to maintain your cost of living all the way until, of course, the day that we finally croak. But the age you can take it out until without penalty is age 59 and a half. If you guys were to take it out any earlier than that, it would be generally subject to about 10% penalty due to premature withdrawal. So the name of the game is beginning this investing now, and then just do not touch it under any circumstance. Of course, if you're in dire situations, there are some ways you can kind of play with it a bit, and I will go into one of the strategies that you can to, like, should worst comes to worst, but the main thing we do want to highlight is just do not touch it. I know it can be tempting once you have this giant pool of money, and sometimes things can be running tight, but really just lock it away, don't touch it, don't even look at it, nothing. So diving into as to why you might need this retirement plan, the biggest thing that you do want to at least enable for yourself is that you don't actually run out of funding, because you do not want to have this crisis when you're like 80 years old and you might not necessarily have anyone who you might be able to rely on as much. Just making sure that you have the independence for the time between 65 to, let's say, average of 85, 90, whatever that might be. Planning for tax increases in the future. This is kind of subject to, I guess, your own personal thinking. Like, there's no real guarantee to say that taxes will increase in the future, but I will share further down the line the tax implications of the retirement. Reducing fear in the downturn in the market. A lot of it is just based off of pure investments. So if you were to have a huge downturn in the market, and let's say it goes down 30%, you saved up $1 million, there goes 300,000, just like that. Sometimes it can literally just be like overnight, if anything. So making sure we can actually have a safeguard against that and hedge just in case. Accommodations and change of lifestyle. Obviously, some people have dreams of going about traveling, where you might have a quick emergency with children or your spouse, whatever it might be, you need to change locations. This involves obviously different costs of living, income, activities, etc. Emergencies, of course, as I already discussed. And then this is a big one right here. Saving enough to overcome inflation. This is probably why, the biggest reason as to why we should begin investing now, because as I said earlier, time is your biggest friend, but it can just as easily be your biggest enemy. So I'll show you guys as to why. We'll try to keep this brief. I know it is a video, if anything, so it's not going to be as interactive, but I'll try to keep it within somewhere between like 25, 30 minutes, hopefully. So let's break down the 50, 30, 20 rule. I'm not sure how many of you guys have heard of this, but essentially You want to allocate about 50% of your income going towards your needs. So obviously this is bills, utilities, groceries, traveling, anything within that regard, 50%. This can go a little higher depending on the range of, depending on your demographics, because these rent and gas is going crazy right now, if anything, as I'm pretty sure you guys are aware of. The wants should be about 30%. So this is anything like food, going out, friends, traveling, monthly subscriptions, anything within that realm, should be about roughly 30%. And then what we're highlighting today is allocating towards the savings, which encompasses, obviously in this presentation, the retirement aspect of it, but anywhere from about 10 to 20% is like a general safe range that you should be saving as part of your income. Now, the emergency fund, before you do consider anything regarding retirement, like I said, we do understand that this is a long waiting game. You do want to ensure that you have at least 3 months of expenses saved up. So, obviously as college students, our expense might not be necessarily too high, nor is our income, but let's say you're spending roughly 500 a month or so, then you want to have, honestly, that's a bit high, if anything. Let's say you're spending 200 a month. You want to have about roughly 600 just sitting in like a little safe box in your bank account. Just put up 600 this way allocated. So if there should, God forbid anything happen, whether it be an injury or unexpected, tire pops and you change your oil, whatever it might be, you have that as a cushion. Hopefully you can bounce back as you continue earning your income. But it is critical that we have this foundation as the groundwork before we actually begin any actual retirement savings. And it's not to say that you shouldn't keep it into consideration, but as you work towards it, just keep retirement in the back of your mind, of course. Other savings, we already know, this is a big transition for a lot of us seniors, and I know I myself, and I'm ready to graduate in the next 2 weeks, thank God. But regardless, graduate school is coming up. You might be putting a down payment towards your house, your car, vacations for those who are taking the next step with their romantic partner. There might be a wedding coming up. Anything within that regard, just all these things are to be taken into consideration towards it. Adult life is not cheap, unfortunately. That's just kind of the realm that we are in today. But definitely try to make a plan for all of these things as well. Like you don't want to go too crazy because obviously you do want to save today so you can have a better tomorrow, but let's not, hit the, crash the car today. And then obviously there's nothing left to drive tomorrow if the whole thing is broken down. That was a terrible analogy, but you guys know what I'm trying to say, if anything. So we'll break down the different types of retirement accounts. This is like the main works of the retirements that you guys should really know about. So we have the quick chart up on the top right corner. This is a little diagram that my fellow peer financial coach Lana had made. And it pretty much highlights the main types of accounts. So you have the IRA on the left and then the 401k on the right. So with the IRA, this is the individual retirement account, which is a self-paced, basically self-funded retirement account where you can basically put in any amount whenever you want, how much you want, assuming it doesn't exceed an annual limit of 6,000. That's the only caveat. But should you want to do just 20 bucks a month, you can go ahead and do that. If you want to bump it up a little high, you want to do 100 a month, you can go ahead and do that as well. I guess we'll break down the Roth and traditional a little bit later. Let me go over to the 401k on the right. So this is offered via employment. And so what they end up doing is they would take off a piece of your check, usually a percentage. It can range from anywhere from like 3 to 5%. Typically, you might be able to bump it up a little higher depending on the benefits package and the company. Not every firm is going to offer this. So for for seniors who are still like going through the interview process and seeing what benefits they might offer, see if they do offer a 401k, because they can offer a match where let's say you earn, let's say like an easy round number of 100,000. If you was to have a 5% contribution, that means they'll be taking 5,000 out of that 100,000 that you're making, going straight into the retirement account, and then they can match 3%. So it's an additional 3,000. So instead of investing just 5% at 5,000, now you have an additional 3,000, which is 8,000 total. This is basically free money coming straight out of the company towards you at no additional cost. Now, the main differences between the two would be, actually, no, they both share the similarity between the Roth and the traditional. And so what this means is it's basically tax implications. So Roth means that the contributions, like the money that you're putting into that bucket, is taxed beforehand. So it's already taxed as ordinary income. Uncle Sam already got his money. So this means you stack up the bucket, and then once you're finally taking it out at age 65 or whatever, they won't be taxing it again because you already got the tax when you're putting it in. Whereas the traditional, you'll stack up the bucket tax-free, but once you finally bring it up there and then 40 years down the line, you start pulling out from it, Uncle Sam's gonna come back around and say, hey, I need a bite of this. So there is kind of questions that go around saying, okay, should taxes be subject to increasing, right? This is not something we can, I don't have a crystal ball, I can't predict that. But a kind of safe bet could be you want to invest in a not traditional, in a Roth today because it's already taxed. And then you don't have to worry about paying taxes on it anymore going down the road. So for all of us college students today, main thing you want to highlight is that obviously we don't have like 401k benefit packages. Obviously, you know, with college, all these like campus jobs and things like that of that nature are probably not going to have that offered to us at this moment until graduation. So what we can do today is start up an individual retirement account. And again, leaning towards, at least in my personal Roth, just given that it's already taxed today, you stack up the bucket, you don't have to touch it ever again in terms of tax. So, but again, a quick caveat with the traditional is that there is a minimum distribution at age 72. So this means that if you don't touch it till age 70, it's whatever. But at age 62, you have to begin withdrawing it from this account, or else it will be subject to a 50% penalty. And that's like annual. So if you're taking out, let's say 40 grand, they're taking 20 grand, if anything. So it's just something to keep in mind. I don't think they'll let you forget about that, if anything, but it's just something to keep in mind for the traditional as well. So main thing I want to wrap up with this: IRA, individual retirement account. You self-pace it yourself, 6K limit. You can fund it however you want, how much you want. Roth is taxed beforehand. You stack it up. Uncle Sam's not going to come and get you. 401k, on the other hand, do employment, take out a percentage, see if you can match it through your company. And then same thing, like I said, Roth and traditional works the exact same way. Now, there is an advantage towards the Roth IRA where you can actually, after 5 years, you can begin to withdraw the contributions without penalty. And so again, the contributions in the sense of the money that you put in. So if you put in $20 a month, after 5 months, it will be 100. So you can take that 100 out, but it will actually stack up interest over time, but you can't touch the interest gained on it, but you can take out your contribution. So if you're really in a tight spot, like I mentioned, and ideally you do not want to touch your retirement account, you know, if that's like last resort, but if you're really in like a pinch, the Roth IRA is one of these features that gives you a little bit of liquidity over time, and then it can give you a little bit of a cushion. But again, you can't touch the interest gained on it, only the contributions. But ideally, you do not want to touch this. On the other hand, the 401k benefits, again, offered through employment. They take a percentage of your check. This is like the matching feature I already talked about with the 3%. That's how much they typically match on, from what I've seen a lot of these cases. But regarding the tax, so a lot of you might be thinking, okay, well, why would I want to do a traditional 401k? Traditional meaning that you get taxed when you're taking it out, right? If taxes could go up over time and then they might be taking a bigger percentage, you end up getting a tax break today. So what that means is, again, let's say you're making a salary of 100,000 and you're contributing 3%. So that means 3,000, right? Instead of taxing you at 100,000, they'll tax you at 97,000 because Uncle Sam is basically saying, all right, you're contributing a little bit of your check to your retirement account. We like that. We're going to give you a little bit of a break. So you end up paying lower taxes on an annual basis. But is that really worth potentially paying a higher tax 40 years down the line when you're finally taking it out? We don't necessarily know, but it is kind of up to your speculation, how you want to go about things. And it really just depends on how much you're earning as well. Now, if you do go down one of these blocks, it is not permanent. So if you was to say, okay, I have a 401k, but you know what? I want to switch over to a Roth. You can do that as well. Do a process called a rollover. There's an official way to do it. I don't know the exact details, but you can talk to your employer. It's essentially a tax-free transfer. If you try to do it yourself, worst case thing you can do is take out the money from one account and then at tax and then try to put it into another account because you're paying like double the tax, if anything. So a rollover is a tax way to do it. Now, if you have a income that's exceeding the Roth IRA limits, because I think at this point, I think it's around 130K individually. If you're married, I think it goes up to like 210,000. Don't quote me on that. But if your income level starts exceeding that level, then you can just do a rollover back into a 401k. Or if you've had multiple jobs and you've had these benefit packages from multiple different employers, you can consolidate it back into one. Or if you just simply, like I said earlier, if you just want to change your strategies, that's an option for you as well. So it's nothing is locked in at the end of the day. So don't feel too much pressure. Just know what's in front of you and how you think you want to manage it, depending on how much money you're going into, how much money you plan on putting into it, and like how often, and if, obviously if it's feasible in the first place. Now, people have said that like a flat million is probably the go-to, like a rule of thumb, if anything, but anywhere from 7 to 10 times your annual salary is a fair range for the amount you want to have build it up before you actually retire. Now, we say a baseline of $1 million, right? But I just wanted to show you guys real quick the implications of inflation. So $1 million today, assuming a 3% inflation rate, so the cost of living continuously rises. If you were to take this $1 million and you stuffed it in like underneath your mattress, in a shoebox, wherever it might be, you just hide it. And it doesn't grow at all. It's not working for you. That $1 million will only have the purchasing power. It will take $2.2 million to have the same purchasing power as that 1 million in 2050. So mind you, that's just like 28 years from now, if anything. So if you were to sit there, have it not grow, the inflation rate is going to continuously rise, the million will not rise. Whatever you was going to buy with that 1 million will literally have like less than 50% of the same purchasing power. Like you need more to get the same items on average. So the way we combat that is through compound interest, right? So essentially what it is I like to use this analogy where just think of like a snowball. And so if you have a snowball at the top of a mountain, at the very peak, when it first starts, it's very small. But as it continuously rolls, it grows bigger and bigger, right? And you have more surface area with each roll. So each continuous roll is collecting more snowballs, and then it gets bigger and bigger, it's collecting more and more snow. That's basically compound interest, where like each period, it has a bigger gain. It's not at the same rate. So Albert Einstein actually highlighted this in one of his quotes. He said, compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. And so I'll show you guys directly what I mean by that. This is a little Excel we put together just to show you guys some numerical example for all my visual learners. So let's say you start in with an initial deposit of 1,000, okay, like today. Let's say you have like a Roth, you say, you know what, I just want to throw money in the account, leave it, and just let it grow. I don't have additional money to fund it continuously. That's perfectly fine. So the first year you put it in today, the balance is at 1,000. If you earn an interest rate of 8%, that means you earn $80 each year. So that'd be flat, right? So you have your 1,000, you earn your 8% interest, which is your $80. Your ending balance is 1,080. Your gain at the end of the year is $80 because it's 80%, right? In year 2, you're now beginning with 1,080 because of the last year's gain. So now you're starting off with 1,080, and then again, 8% of 1,080 is now $86. So it's a $6 gain. So your gain this year is not 80, it's 86. Same thing that carries over to year 3, and now your new balance is 1166. 8% of that is 93. So as you can tell, each year it's continuously growing larger and larger. So the main thing with this is that the earlier you start, the bigger the snowball, like the more time the snowball has to actually grow. So it's less about the amount that you put in and more about how early you start. That's like the biggest thing you want to focus on. So on the right is a quick little graph. So the blue line down below is a flat interest rates, meaning it's always 80 no matter what. It's 8% of the original principal amount that you put in, being the 1,000. Whereas the orange line has a curve, is basically highlighting the growth over time. And so like for like much in the first half, it's kind of like, it's a bit more straight, but as like the further out you go to the right, you'll see like it's like a sharp increase, almost like a half pipe. So now you have to remember, we have a huge time horizon between, age now, we're like 20 years old about on average, the college student, but pushing like 65, that's a good 40 years, if anything, 45. So hopefully within, obviously, as you range closer and closer towards it, you're gaining these like momentous strides each year that it collects interest. Going to the next. So I want to highlight a quick example where I made a graph for saving at 35 versus saving at 25. So like I said, age 35, you're aiming to retire at age 65. Again, a nice round number of an income of 100,000. If you have an annual savings percentage of 8%, that means you're putting in 8,000 a year because again, your income is 100,000. So if you was to start at age 35 and every year you fund 8,000, at age 65, you will have saved about 865,000. Because again, this is in thousands of dollars and the bottom is the age. So this peak right here, age 65, about 860,000. Now, if you was to invest just 10 years earlier, right, in this graph, you start at age 25. Again, 10 years, same exact stats. Retiring at 65, earning 100,000, you're saving 8,000 a year. At age 65, you will have saved about 1.6 million, right? Now, if you go back, you might be thinking, okay, but that was only a 10-year gap. And if you're saving 8,000 a year, it should just be 80,000 more, right? But as I highlighted, you have the power of compound interest, and just starting 10 years earlier doubled the amount that you would have saved at the same rate 10 years later. So that's like huge, if anything. So this will make a huge difference between those who have enough to fund their entire retirement versus those who will run out halfway through or even sooner, if anything. But again, just to highlight, time is your biggest friend. It's less about the amount, more about the time that you put in. Even if it's not as consistent as you would like it, the earlier you can start this pool, just let time work for you, if anything. All it really takes is getting started. So main priorities, just to kind of wrap it up, have 3 to 6 months of emergency funding. Again, lay down the groundwork. Doesn't matter how much, if you have like I said, if you have the jacuzzi, 4-story house, 70-inch widescreen TV, if the foundation of the house is weak and all that thing crashes, there's no point. Pay special attention to the high interest debt. So again, it's also, like I said, like the double-edged sword part here. While interest, it might work in your favor for things like investments and retirement accounts, as well as individual brokerage. It goes against you with the student loans and credit cards and any other debts you might have, because the longer that balance sits there, the biggest that gets as well. So you really do want to have an emphasis on clearing that out as quickly as you can, as long as it's within your means, of course. And then consider contributing to a 401k with an employer matching contributions. Again, this is basically free money. You're investing 5%, 5K of 100K, they'll give you 3% for free on top of it. And then finally, obviously, this is more within the college student type of realms. Consider opening a Roth IRA. Again, it can be both either Roth or traditional, but again, with the tax implications, Roth is you start that fund today, you already pay taxes on the money coming in. Don't have to worry about it later. Traditional, You stack up the bucket, but when you begin taking it out in 40 years, that's when Uncle Sam says, all right, you owe me some taxes. So hopefully all that's in mind. Hopefully I kind of highlighted some different aspects. Hopefully something surprised you, if anything. I know even when I was making the simulation, it kind of opened my eyes as well. I was like, damn, I didn't know it was like just 10 years doubles your annual savings in just the same time frame. Well, almost nearly like a 10-year difference. Like, I didn't realize it would stack up just that much, if anything. So there are many ways to kind of go about it. Consider working with an advisor, and we have a couple of different firms down below. The Charles Schwab, I'm a fan of. There is the UMass 5, for those of you who might not know. It's basically a student-friendly credit union here at UMass. They offer a couple of things such as like interest-free loans for, farm share loans for those who need groceries and my off-campus students, bike loans. If your computer breaks, they can offer you a computer loan in the meantime. Pretty much like a friendly neighborhood credit union. And then there is Fidelity. Just a quick example. I know I have a couple of friends who ends up using this. I think a couple of other SAM members might use Fidelity as well. You can talk to your bank. The name of the game is to just do your research. I'm not going to say like go to your bank today and start it up. Just like I'd perform some research over on the market. Feel free to schedule a one-on-one with us via Navigate. We can kind of talk that through as well. But any one of these should be fine. If anything, like whatever you end up selecting. Again, not to highlight these. This is not sponsored. Again, this is not sponsored. We at SAM, we cannot give you legitimate concrete recommendations. We can only tell you the information that's out there, and you guys can kind of navigate it from there. But whatever it might be, it should work in your favor, if anything. So thank you for making it to the end of this video. If anything, again, you can schedule us via Navigate or send us an email, DM, whatever it might be, to give us a follow over at UMass Sam on Instagram, here's our Facebook and Twitter. We don't really use those too much these days, but Instagram, we're very active on top of there. There's our email on the bottom right. I said bottom right, bottom left. Thank you again, if anything, and let's focus up on this retirement. All right, thank you guys. Take care.